Yeah, you don't have your standards, right? Like I have there are some acronyms that are out there. I didn't make this up, but there are some acronyms around being a husband that you honor, you understand, you support, you build up your wife, you align with the word of God, you nurture her, and you defend her. That's the acronym for husband. You honor her, understand her, you support her, right? You build her up, you align to the word of God, you nurture her, and you defend her. Gentleman that put that acronym together, I don't know his name, but he was a man who made an acronym for husbands. That was the context of. He said, "I have one for wives."
Man did.
You have one.
I do have one.
Okay,
for
let's
wives.
hear yours. Thank you.
I didn't do wife because I didn't have enough letters, and I know how you guys will feel.
Yeah, because
you'll be like, husband is long, wife is short.
Let's do wives end. All right, we'll add a couple A and D's on there.
So for wives, she wins him over with her conduct.
Okay.
Right? She wins him over with her conduct, not her speech.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd go with that with W.
Right. That's a W, right? So she initiates intimacy. Right?
Thank God.
For V, she has victory over her emotions.
Oh, they need more than that. Keep going. Preach, sister.
Right? So for E, she encourages him. She esteems him better than herself. Right? This is scripture. And S, she submits. There's leadership.
Where's the part of getting money?
Man, trademark
Okay.
that. Yeah, trademark
Right?
that. That's you.
Right? So if I live inside of the standard of being a wife, right? And I win my husband over with my conduct, and I don't rely on my intellect and my words. I rely on my feminine nature, essence, and being.
Behavior,
right?
yep.
And my behavior, how I entreat him, how I receive him, how I respond to him as soon as he comes through the door, right? How I study him and pay attention to what he likes and doesn't like. And instead of challenging him, I flow with him, right? And I do that. I initiate intimacy sometimes. He's not the only one tugging on me. I tug on him too, right? Right? I have victory.
Sometimes. So why is that a part of the acronym? As if that's like
You
our
had
job.
you had husband, HUSBAND, and you worry about wives.
5
No,
letters.
Yeah. No, I liked everything that was said for husband.
I'm sure you
Of course you did.
No,
That's the problem.
yeah, I
That's
did.
why he only made husbands. We had to have a woman make
And
wives.
I love that a man did that. But I'm saying for the I, why is it
Initiate intimacy.
right? And not to say that women shouldn't, but why is that in there as if that is
It's
Thing
important
that
to a
women
man.
don't do.
no. Like as if it's supposed to be a role for us. Because you said sometimes
It
in
is.
your statement.
Just to wrap up, to go back to what you were saying in terms of like when they bounce out of their marriage because they see that somebody left theirs and now they have the chutzpah to go ahead and leave their marriage. My response to that is that person doesn't have their own standards, right? If I have my own standards of being a wife, I'm not really dependent on anybody else's response to their divorce. Do you know what it means to like stand firm in your position as a wife or a husband? That requires a lot of like energy expenditure. I don't got time to watch what you're doing over there. I don't even have time to study if that's even a consistent smile or not. Right? I'm not worried about you.
It's a smile for the gram.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
Yo,
My
it's-
standards.
Yeah, I ain't never been on FaceTime with him. Trust me. It ain't on the gram.
But are you saying that your observation of this person now being happy has you question whether or not you want to be single again?
What I'm saying is that, and this is something that I've realized, especially, and I can't speak for women being single, but for men being single, men who typically, were the, breadwinners of their relationship, right? I see me, and I have a few friends that are now divorced, but one that is as of late. I see what I've categorized as the release of an adult responsibility off of their shoulders, so they're able to fly, float, they can do whatever that they choose.
So
right?
to the worker, that's like retirement.
What? Oh my God! You just said it in the way I could never ever think about. He retired, and now you can see him living. He's living the fucking life, right? So like. Sometimes you look at it like, damn, retirement must be fun.
Right.
Like,
so in terms of trauma context, right? Because when I hear the word relief as a coach, I automatically think trauma. So just to preface it, okay? Well, there was just like the essence of it. So like you said, like there was like this sense of, to me, when I watch body language and behavior, it can kind of correlate to certain words. The words that I picked up when I saw that response that you had when you kind of like lean back and hunch, almost like a sigh, is relief. I look at that as a relief of tension, right? And that's what happens when we're living in trauma. So in our body, in our physiological bodies, we all experience trauma and we have primitive responses to that trauma: fight, flight, fawn, freeze, right? And so in the animal kingdom, because I need to get to the animal kingdom in order to get to us as human beings. In the animal kingdom, when an animal realizes that they're in danger, their adrenaline, everything starts pumping. That animal has to take off speed. They don't have time to analyze and assess. They got to run. But what the animal kingdom gets to do is when they realize that they're in a safe position, they get to go into a corner of safety and they pant and they relax, right? However, as adults in the human world, when we experience like the desire to flight or to flee, or you're in a relationship and you don't want to be there anymore, that's triggering the trauma response to take off, to flight, right? You can't. So what happens is you're experiencing the adrenaline, you're experiencing panic attacks, you're experiencing all of this rush, but you don't have an opportunity to go into a corner and pant and relieve that tension. So what your friend was experiencing more than likely is what you would coin as a remittance of adult responsibility. In my coach brain, I'm thinking he has a relief of tension. The relationship was traumatic and he was in constant fight or flight mode in his relationship. And now that he doesn't have to engage in that, he has bandwidth to think about and plan other things that he wants to do.
If that was the case, that means every single divorce that a man has where he had then experienced happiness after his divorce means that his divorce was the pivotal moment where he was basically in fight or flight mode, right? But not necessarily, it could be, hey, listen, we just weren't working.
But not every divorce is the same, though.
What are we talking about?
Are we going to talk as men? Is that what you're trying to say?
Thank you.
What?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I'm saying
it's not
as-
real.
As men, like we have a saying, I'm sorry, you might have to bleep this out, but the only thing better than pussy is new pussy.
New pussy, sure.
Goddamn.
That's his relief. That's his relief. And like, we didn't even get all to the trauma. It's like that. I'm free. I can just gallivant and do what is in my heart to do without.
Yeah, but I'm bringing to the conscious what's subconscious. Nobody walks around saying I'm in fight mode. No one walks around saying I'm in flight mode. I'm bringing what the subconscious response that the body has. I'm making it into a conscious conversation. Doesn't mean that doesn't happen, and it doesn't mean that will happen to your friend. Alternatively, right, for some men that men don't get to experience is that you guys need a lot of escape, right? Like that is a natural response that men need, and I recommend it, right? Especially if you're in a household with a lot of feminine energy, a lot of responsibility, you need a moment to decompress and to detach because men are good at that. There's nothing wrong with that. It should not be villainized. We shouldn't be expecting men to do more of it. Men don't necessarily need to use as many words to speak as women do, and I don't recommend that they should. I think that we should allow women to be women and we should allow men to be men. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm saying that in this, what he's sharing, his friend's relief or his excitement, his happiness occurs to me as he had a bad marriage. That's the layman's. That's the layman's.
Didn't, though. That's the craziest.
That's the layman's terms.
The crazy thing is that he didn't. I was trying to tell him go back home.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Like,
what made him not want to be in a relationship?
I'm going to tell you. So the thing is, and this is something that as a man, I don't think women will ever understand. There is a responsibility. It's just like work, right? 95% of people probably don't want to go to the job that they go to, but that doesn't mean that they hate their job. Some do, some don't. They just don't want to work every day. I want to work one day a week, right? That's it. I don't, I love my job. There's very, very long periods of time where I don't want to be at my job, but that doesn't mean I hate my job. Doesn't mean that my job is causing me trauma. No, but consistency is the hardest thing for a person, and being consistently, tied to a responsibility without the release, right, can then form a relief once it's now done, aka retirement, aka divorce. So they actually didn't have a bad marriage. They were actually the thing that we kept telling ourselves we wanted to be.
Goals.
Right? Floyd Mayweather had an interview when he retired early, and they were like, yo, why are you retiring? You're still capable to be the great. You're still capable to compete with the best. And one of the greatest things that I've ever heard in my life was, I wanted to retire from the sport. I didn't want the sport to retire me. Right? And I look at that in tenfold and across everything. as a person who loves their job, who loves their craft, and loves their marriage, I think that men would just operate better if they were able to have periods of no responsibility, right? So what you're seeing is just the fact that I don't.
And what would that provide them? I don't think that what you're saying is so nuanced that women would never understand it, which is why I was kind of caught off guard, because I think that it's very understandable. I think a lot of adults feel like adulting is ghetto, right?
So I don't want to use the word ghetto. It's just difficult.
I'm just saying, like, we would like to take a break from it, right? So what I'm saying is that,
but does that make it traumatic? Does that make see? This is the thing. We get to a point where we label things with negative connotation words.
Yeah.
And we assume that because somebody wants a break, they experienced trauma, they had a relationship that they didn't, thrive well in, or all these different things. But it's not necessarily the case.
What I would say is, let me have 30 minutes with him, and then I'll tell you, because I don't know what you're saying to him. You have to remember, in the context of men sharing information, that sometimes when men are being vulnerable with other men, they get heckled. Their experiences get minimized, right? They're grouped into certain. I don't know how honest and transparent he is about his experience of being a husband. I don't know what it's doing to him, so I can't really. He's not here. What I can say is, most marriages that end in divorce are not ending on happy terms. Most marriages that are ending is because at least one person feels like they have to. If somebody has to get out of something, most of the time there's some sort of trauma there. Any person, male or female, who says that I have a great relationship and I want to leave it, we have a separate kind of conversation that we want to have. But overall, what I would say is that he does not understand the blessing, the birthright, and the burden of being a husband. And he opted out of that because he likely does not have standards around it. He does not have a vision, a long-term vision and plan for it. And so it was easy for him, or the easiest thing for him to do, or the thing that he could do, was to leave it. Because if you have a vision and a plan, and you know who you are, you know what you're doing, and the intention is to do it to completion, then he opted out before it was complete. And I don't know why.
In my head, I feel, and I'm no statistician or scientist, I feel that the fact that women are raised up to want marriage, right? And we are the ones that give them that marriage, because we have to propose, we have to get in the ring, we have to do everything. I feel that for us, we've accomplished that. And that is a huge task. We have given you what you desired since
our freedom.
Right? And I think in exchange, we do want freedom within that, right? So I think for us, we just look at things differently, of like man and woman. So I think that's why we live longer, because we feel like we've accomplished our task. We fulfilled our role as a man. I'm saying, just as a man, if I married you, I know that, like, I've given you that dream. Like, I've achieved that dream, and we're doing it together. And like, now I want to do everything you want to do. You know what I mean?
But this is the problem. We
weren't born with this dream, though. We weren't raised with this dream.
We never gave a fuck about marriage, bro.
Let's just take away the dream. I'm giving you what you always wanted. If you're going into a marriage saying, I'm giving this to her because this is what she wanted, and now now the task is done.
Why we live longer.
Are you that committed to being there for the rest of your life? And that's the problem.
I agree.
That's the problem.
That's to state that men live longer in marriage, and they're comparing it to men who are single. So we're talking about longevity as far as years of your life. We're not talking about quality of life. When we look at statistics, we got to be very, very careful, because we don't really know. You have to be sure that what we're communicating is what they intended to measure. We're not talking about necessarily quality of life. We're talking about the longevity of life, right? And they live longer in a marriage. So we have to ask why. Maybe the construct of a man requires that he have something to live for. And that is why he lives longer in a marriage than outside of a marriage, right? Maybe part of that context is that he has a partner that is concerned about his health and well-being, and ensures that he is on top of his health and his well-being in a way that a man who is single is a little bit more lackadaisical.
Mm-hmm. How often do single men go to the doctor?
It's not actually false. That's actually proven as part of the correlation.
But what I'm trying to say, the reason why I say that is false, and it's not false, but it's false in terms of today. You know why? Because you're comparing a marriage and you're comparing people who are probably born anywhere between the 30s to the 70s. That has nothing to do about kids who are 25 years old who now have the world at their feet.
Wait, why did you say that?
What are you talking about?
The 30s to 70s.
He's talking about.
He's saying that the
studies are for people that are not of this generation.
They're outdated.
They're severely outdated.
Yeah.
By 2 to 3 generations outdated. Yes, they have to be, because it's every 15 years is a generation, right? So I'm going to assume if the average death age is around 70 and I'm 30, that's about 40 years, which is nearly 3 generations back that we're talking about. This study is really assessing. They're not assessing 50 and 40 and 30-year-olds.
You can't do it for a 25-year-old because they haven't hit 70 yet. 25-year-old has not yet hit 75. So we do have to wait for that to happen.
But now that's why I'm trying to say that those stats, and I hate when we do this, we take stats that do not correlate for the time. The lifestyle of in the 90s versus the lifestyle in the 2024 or 25 is completely different. Therefore, this man and the duties of life and the accessibility to life and what to live for did not possess the same today as it did 30 years from now. Therefore, those stats are severely outdated and they do not fit with today's time frame in the gentlemen that are in the ages of 18 and 40 or even 45.
Okay, but that's not. But like,
so like, what I'm saying is, I don't want to use those stats today with this specific conversation because they can. Yes, are they real? Yes. Do they fit today's time frame? No. We will have to wait another 30 years.
What would be the comparable question then? Because her question was different. We can't use that question in that context because time hasn't elapsed.
Exactly.
So but the new question.
The new question would simply be realistically theories, right? It's not. It's going to be what's the theoretical. We can't use stats to something that don't apply.
Sure.
You know, we're comparing apples and oranges here. So for a 25-year-old person who can now go and live in Dubai and then go live in Thailand and then go live in all around the world, Europe, and experience the world and live a joyful life, could potentially live to 99 years old.
Sure.
Right? And then in 40, 50 years, we're coming back and saying clinically, well, they were wrong or they were right for that time frame, but they were wrong in terms of what their reasoning were. So let's just actually stay on topic with what's actually happening today, because today is completely different than what's happening before.
What I would say is that, to your point, right, we don't have enough data to come to a conclusion, right? But what I would say in today's day and age, based on our lifestyle and based on our inability to be united and to align, it seems to be a struggle, at least in the social media world. I would say marriage is dangerous for both men and women. That's what I would say.
I agree.
I would say that we need America to go on pause for a second. We all need a quick, we got to regroup and come together and redefine a lot of different things, right? Because a lot of the methods that we're trying to utilize, they are outdone, they are archaic, they don't apply. My parents were never thinking about going to Dubai. You know what I mean? My parents, that wasn't part of their checklist. And if you don't have that part of your checklist, then you don't have tension, right? So if you don't have the money to not go to Dubai, it's irrelevant because that's a tension that doesn't exist. That is a present tension that we have today, and tension and trauma and all those things that impacts our heart and impacts our mind and impacts our quality of life. So I do agree with you there. So I would say, marriage today and age, if you're not married right now, marriage is dangerous for you.
So in your expert opinion, what is the reason that some women won't submit or obey a man? Do you think that it may be because they're waiting for the one they really want to be with?
So I think that's a really good question. So there's a spiritual answer and then there is a mainstream answer. I'll start with the mainstream one. So the mainstream answer for me would be that, she probably... There's a disconnect. There's likely a disconnect because some guys can be a really great guy, right? He has a really good. So as an example, I know someone who recently approached me. He wants to work with me. He's good looking. I looked at his page. If that's him, right? He occurs as good looking, right? That I would say universally attractive, right? He's universally attractive. He has a good paying job. He was divorced before, but he has learned some lessons. He's learned a lot about life. He's older now. And he is looking forward to being a husband. He's not just looking forward to having a wife, which is very different. So he kind of checks a lot of the boxes as far as what I would say would be considered like a good guy, right? A good man. And yet he's having a really hard time. Being able to have a woman and keep a woman because of that tension, that tension that exists around being able to move forward, right? Because how can two people move together if there's no agreement, right? There's no agreement there isn't any submission there. In those cases, sometimes what I do believe is happening in mainstream America, at least, is women are allowing men to take up some of their time. They're taking up some of his time to avoid the experience of loneliness, right? To see if maybe, maybe she's given a couple of guys a chance that maybe she shouldn't have. And she's just trying something new, but he just doesn't do it for her. He's not him, right? He's not Himothy, as we say, right? He's just not it.
As they
say, right? And in those cases, yeah, I recommend that he let her go, right? Like if someone is giving you a hard time as a man, if a woman is giving you a hard time as a man, you cannot build. And this goes into the spiritual side of it, because the word of God says that how can two walk together lest they agree? Now, why do I think that in a spiritual context, women don't submit to men? I think that in a spiritual context is because those men who subscribe to Christianity specifically, right, because that's where I come from, they do not submit to God. There's a natural order that exists. And it's kind of like, for example's sake, a really great leader has had to been a really great follower at some point. Right? Like he understands what it feels and looks like to follow somebody's lead when they were doing right and when they weren't doing well at all. And when you're following somebody's lead when they're doing right, trust gets established and reestablished and reinforced over and over and over again, to the point where you can execute decisions outside of consulting that person, because you know how they think, you know what they want, and you know how to deliver it. Versus being under somebody's leadership that wavers a lot, that seems to not connect. It can be a little bit frustrating and annoying. And so it leaves you becoming more independent. You start to operate independently of that person. Now, when a man of God has a relationship with God, that he hears from God, he senses things from God, and he makes those decisions, he has a reinforced relationship with God where he trusts God. But if another man is trying things out with God and he's trying to build and establish a relationship, and he feels like God is one of those leaders that I hear you sometimes, I don't hear you, he loses trust with God. Both men, and even men outside of the context of marriage, you like to throw around the word submission. But that word submission is a right that a man inherits and he earns. He doesn't really just get it because of his gender. Submission is something that comes from a biblical format, and there's a process to earning that. And the first part of submission is that a man is supposed to submit to God first. And then second to that is the word of God actually says that husbands and wives should submit one to another. Submission is not for men and women. Submission is for husbands and wives. But we've mainstreamed it to illustrate what men are craving. And what men are craving is being able to build and have some partnership in order to build. But there's a lot of nuances there, right? But overall, do I think a reason why a woman won't listen to a man is because she's interested somewhere else? Yes. I also think that sometimes people get a little bit petty and he may not be listening to her, right? So I'll say this and then I'll close, right? Because I know I'm kind of going on. But leadership, the same way that a man wants a woman to accept his leadership, so much so that it allows him grace, right? As a man, no man wants the pressure of being perfect in his leadership. He is going to drop the ball a couple of times, but he just wants her to have enough grace to understand that even though I dropped the ball, know that I'm man enough to pick this back up. I need you to trust me enough for that. The continuum for that is a woman in the essence of her, which is her intuition, sensing, feeling, that is without evidence, where men lead in leadership and logic that supplies much, much evidence or tangible, right? Just tangibility, where women operate in a realm of the unseen world. And she needs him to trust that. So when a man resists a woman's intuition and her feedback, and he won't take it, he like resists it so much, then she relinquishes her desire to submit to his logic. So an example of that is if a man is thinking that he wants to open a business, he's opening a business, and his wife says, yo, I'm really feeling and sensing that you should add this component to your business. And he's like, nah, I don't want to do that. she then says, hey, that friend that you have, that homegirl that you have, it seems like she like you. Nah, she don't like you. Don't know what you're talking about. And every time she comes with her sensing, her intuition, he continues to give her the Heisman. Eventually, a lot of women will mirror the behavior of her man. It doesn't occur to him as that. It's not happening consciously for him, what's going on a subconscious level, but she's actually mirroring him. So when she resists his word and his leadership, she's also giving him the Heisman because he modeled that behavior and he taught her how.
All right, so I have a question for you. I want to ask Rome and then you.
Sure.
Both of you answer. I don't need Amanda's answer.
Yeah, I was about to say, don't talk to me.
And see, she's just modeling the behavior I taught her.
Right.
What percentage of women do you believe are coachable by their significant other? And then what percentage of women do you believe are coachable by some type of expert or professional?
Honestly, I don't pretend to know.
That's opinion. This is 100% opinion.
So
Speculation. Opinion.
So speculating, those kinds of questions are very hard because it's a blanket statement. You need a little bit more context. What I'm hearing you say is, would a woman, this is how I'm receiving it. This is not what you said. This is what I'm hearing. What are the chances of a woman submitting to her boss versus her man?
No.
In terms of expert.
No, by expert, I'm saying, let's say if a therapist, a coach, a mentor, I don't mean the actual like workspace.
Okay.
I mean like somebody who is certified.
Advice.
Yeah, certified in that field to help teach, or guide them to some type of healing or something to be, pushed forward for their self-development. Now, sometimes it's not the significant other that is able to do that. Sometimes it is, or sometimes it is somebody who has some type of, professional certification to do it. So
sure.
My question is really a two-part question because, yeah.
So again, it's still pretty challenging for me because I'm thinking about several scenarios. But what I will say is that I can see a lot of women subscribing to someone where there is a lack of familiarity, right? Where they don't see that person in their vulnerability. I can see a lot of women resisting, like when she gets comfortable with a man or any person gets comfortable with a person after a while, they stop taking them so seriously because it's just like, I already saw you, I already see you. Versus someone who has a certain stature and a certain divide where they occur as like, this person knows what they're doing. This person has the evidence of it, and I'm just going to go ahead and listen to that. I can see that happening a lot. I can see, again, because it supports, similar to what I've shared before, where there's feminine testing in the context of a relationship that doesn't really happen in that expert dynamic. So I could see it being heightened in a relationship than if that person is, is like beyond 6 degrees of separation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, so, and I'm just judging this based on a person-to-person basis. I've had the fortunate experience to coach kids. I've also mentored some people who are now adults. And I've realized that majority of people are not coachable. They're not coachable. Not by somebody who is a professional, not by somebody who is even somebody that they love. I feel like the only time that people tend to become coachable is when they get fed up of losing.
Okay.
Right? So now, the problem that I have is that sometimes we have this conversation where women are not listening to the man, and we can say there's a bunch of different variables. But the variable is that this person has been losing, which is why they're already at this point where they're being resistant. And it's going to take for them to get fed up of losing to then start being receptive to something or somebody. Right? So
is that your observation when you're seeing like girls in sports versus boys in sports?
No, I'm just saying it. No, now I'm outside of the sports spectrum. I'm just speaking in general behavior. Even if I look at people who've made changes in their lives, they got fed up of the outcome that they consistently got. Whether or not it was a little bit better than the previous, it's still not what they're aiming for. So now they have to make a total transformation, right? Where they usually need some type of guidance. People are not easily guided anymore.
I
And because of that, that's also a reason why that woman's not listening. It's not sometimes always just you, you know, or that's also another reason why your man is not receptive. It's not just you. This person has not lost enough yet to a point where they can value something to actually be receptive or take direction. Some people will lose, and this is the reality. Some people are going to lose their entire life, right? Just don't be one of those people. You have to be coachable. You have to be able to take direction, because as much as we like to think we know it all, even if we have proven concept in our experiences, we still don't know what's ahead. And the variables change everything. So, I mean, that's just my personal perspective.